Okay, so here you got a European who is attempting to his best, and I'm gonna give him some credit. For some reason, he understands. To him, it's clear. I mean, everything that he wrote on there, the pathway of venial sins, those that aren't baptized, and then the pathway of the saints. In his mind, he got it mapped out. But for anybody else, they would have been totally confused because I was totally confused. And I've watched this a few times. I don't see how anybody can comprehend exactly how to get to heaven based on the teachings coming out of Greco-Roman Catholicism and Christianity. It's way too complicated, way too complicated. And he says all that is in the New Testament, but it really ain't in the New Testament. All that, all that he broke down came after the writings of Paul and James and all those Hellenistic Jews who did their best to try and create another religion out of what Yeshua came to bring to the actual Hebrews in Judea during his lifetime. And they spun that into a whole another lifestyle religion, which at the end of the day, it does more confusion than brings more clarity. So for individuals that are following the Greco-Roman understanding of who Yeshua was and trying to follow in his footsteps in order to find salvation in heaven, you're going to be completely confused. Completely. But like I mentioned, to his credit, he understands all that. And I'm sure he took, decades through seminary school and trying to understand exactly how it maps out and works. But at the end of the day, in believing that, heaven is the place you go after you die, after purgatory, regardless of how righteous you were. And then once the end comes, when Jesus comes back, at that point, we all raise up out of the grave, and then we're judged to determine whether we go actually to heaven or we go to hell. Now he believes that fervently, with all his heart, soul, and mind. You can already see it on his face. But I'm going to reveal to you exactly what the Catholic Church says about heaven and hell to this day, right now. I'm going to pull this up. This is from Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah. And this is the first, part one, the first writing of Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah of Ben Ami. And this is on page 59, okay? This is an excerpt he got out of some newspapers and some magazines back in 1996 when the Catholic Church came out and revealed the truth about heaven and hell. Because yesterday, the Church of England abolished hell, or at any rate, the hell we have been familiar with for the past 2,000 years. No longer sinners who die unrepentant, tormented for all eternity in a fiery furnace. A report called The Mystery of Salvation by the Church's Doctrine Commission expressed regret that Christians have been frightened in the past by such sadistic images of horrible suffering that make God appear a cruel monster rather than a kind old man. On the face of it, this is a serious attempt to make the Christian message more credible to a sophisticated and skeptical generation. And I believe that to be true. This came out of the Daily Mail back in January 1996. Here's another article from the Daily Mirror. There's good news for sinners. Hell does not exist. There are no lakes of fire, no devils, no brimstones, according to a report from the Church of England. Hell is not eternal torment. The Church's Doctrine Commission has announced. So what happens to those who throw their lot in with Satan? The Church has ruled that the price they will pay will be literally nothing. Now, the Church has been spewing the doctrine of heaven and hell for, like I mentioned, almost 2,000 years, ever since the Council of Nicaea commissioned Christianity as being an actual religion has merged all their pagan traditions in with the worship of Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ. And they've been teaching that, heaven is in the sky, hell is beneath, and determining your actions, good or bad, you either go to heaven or you go to hell after you die. But, here the Catholic Church, back in 1996, they said, you know what, all that heaven and hell stuff, that wasn't true. It was wrong teachings and interpretations. There is no hell beneath you. It's all a state of mind. And we're going to go on and read this other article from, it says, from the Times by Ruth Gillick in 1996. Traditional images of hellfire and damnation are wrong, says a Church of England reports, which criticizes some past teachings for trying to frighten people too much. Statistically expressed, views of eternal torment and punishment left searing psychological scars on many, it says today. Christians have professed appalling theologies which made God into a statistic monster. So during this season, out of nowhere, the Catholic Church said, you know what? Our perception of heaven and hell that's been taught for generations, centuries, is wrong. And people don't, when they die, go to purgatory and then go to a hell afterwards when Jesus comes back, and then, they either go to heaven. They essentially stated that heaven and hell are a state of mind, and that based on your state of mind and your actions, you either create a heaven or you create a hell. Okay, and one of our astute scholars, his name was Turabida, back in 1996. He happened upon this article when he was flying from Israel back to America. We had a small little clipping that said, the Catholic Church declares heaven and hell to be mistaught, and that it's really a state of mind. And we saw that a victory for the kingdom of Yah. Because like I mentioned, generations of people have been lied to by these, Eurocentric, quote unquote, saints and priests that, the life here, do the best you can, but it only really matters, once you actually physically die. And then you get judged. As long as you believe in Jesus with all your heart, soul, and might here on earth, when you die, when he comes back, you're guaranteed an entry into heaven. But this has been a fabrication that has destroyed many people's lives. Many people, even today, billions of people believe in the heaven and hell myth. But we take credit and say that based on the truth that we've been given, that we've revealed through our writings, through our teachings, the past 50 years, that this European institution was forced to admit the truth, that all that heaven and hell stuff was a lie. And for many Catholics, it's like, okay, so what do we do? I mean, what's the plan? I was preparing for, to meet my family who already died before me, after purgatory, when we are given our choice and decision whether or not our righteous actions were good or our sins were bad, and we need to go to heaven or hell. So it's like, where are they at? If that heaven and hell thing was a myth. But this is what happens. The adversaries of Yah, who dedicate themselves to deception and lies, create a fabrication and attempt to impress that upon, millions of people globally. Eventually, when the truth comes out, it falls apart. But this is the power that we've gained back once again. So this is the power to define that manifests based on having specific access to proper knowledge. And there's millions of people today, billions of people who, follow Christianity, follow Catholicism, who believe in heaven in the sky and hell beneath it, and that you'll go there after you physically die. But I'm going to show how Even a Christian from a century ago actually understood the truth about heaven and hell. And he breaks it down pretty effectively. His name is Charles Fillmore. He was a Christian pastor and writer in the early 20th century, late 19th century. And he wrote a book called the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which is a dictionary that has many terms and words that are written in the Bible, and he breaks it down from a quote unquote metaphysical perspective or spiritual perspective. And his writings are pretty profound. And I recommend you go out and purchase this book if you're going to be an astute scholar, an individual that's searching for truth. I recommend you get this book and keep it in your library because it's very profound and in depth. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up a portion in his book where he talks about what heaven and hell truly is from a spiritual perspective. Okay, so we're going to start with the definition of heaven. He says the Christ consciousness, he's a Christian, the realm of divine mind, a state of consciousness in harmony with the thoughts of Yah. Heaven is everywhere present. It is the orderly, lawful adjustment of God's kingdom in man's mind, body, and affairs. Yeshua, of all those claiming intimate acquaintance with spiritual things, gave heaven definite location. Quote, the kingdom of Yah is within you, end quote. And this is the scripture that the Father was referring to earlier in GBT in Luke chapter 17. It says, heaven is within every one of us, a place, a conscious sphere of mind, having all the attraction described or imagined as belonging to heaven. But this kingdom within is not material, it's spiritual. And there's another definition he gives of heaven and earth. There's two states of mind, the ideal and the manifestation. According to Revelation 21:1, we are to have new ideals with manifestations in the earth to correspond. So in other words, the spiritual realm of heaven is something that you activate and that you have access to from within inside you. Okay? The spirit that you have, vibration that you've been given from the Creator, you are supposed to consciously align it with the spirit of Yah. And you do it through fulfilling Yah's will, adhering to Yah's instructions, having the laws of Yah be not just in your mind, but in your heart. And you apply them in your actions, everyday action. And then by doing so, you manifest in your reality that heaven, that kingdom, okay? And that's how you take the spiritual and you manifest it into the material on the physical plane. There's Yah vision two planes of consciousness, the heaven and the earth, or more properly, quote unquote, the heavens and the earth. One is the realm of pure ideas, the other of thought forms. Heaven is the orderly realization of divine ideas. Earth is the manifestation of these ideas. So the source of being righteous and being holy, being divine, that is a principal idea that manifests itself in your consciousness first. Okay? And then once you are aware of this elevated state of existence, at that point, you therefore begin to manifest it in your physical reality on earth through your actions, through everything that you do, your words, everything that you become and speak and do, it becomes a realization for that heavenly state of consciousness. Okay? And this individual, like I said, Charles Fillmore, he wrote this book back in 1920. Okay? So he was clear what heaven and earth, the term of really meant.